Hello and welcome to another video of Diesel Corsa Diaries. Now in the first video I went through my car, but not really in too much detail, it has to be said. So I'm going to make a change now, and I'm going to start with the optional extras this car has, namely how useful are they? Do you actually need them? Now the whole point of optional extras is that they're meant to be an added convenience, but of course not all conveniences are created equal. So I'll be going through the optional extras one by one in this video and discussing whether they're really needed or not, and I'm going to start with these, the automatic headlights. Now let's be honest here, how much effort is it really to switch on your headlights when the sun sets by? God forbid you have to twist a button. With that being said, there is a certain level of coolness about having your headlights switch on in a tunnel. Suddenly, I find myself mixing in with the BMWs and Audis and Nissan Qashqais, who all have their lights magically coming on too. Ultimately though, as fun of a party trick as it is, auto lights aren't really that necessary if you are out looking for a Corsa. Staying with the automated theme of things here, we move on to the wipers. Now, auto wipers are great in theory. They come on as it rains and turn off when it doesn't. Sounds simple, but you'd be surprised to realise how easy it is sometimes to drive out of a rain shower and forget your wipers are on. So for that reason they're great, but in the Corsa they work in a little more rudimentary fashion. Now I'm not sure entirely how it works in other cars, so do excuse my ignorance here if I am wrong, but in the Corsa at least, to turn on the automatic wipers, you have to actually turn on the stalk in the first place, which to me, it kind of defeats the point. Imagine having auto headlights that you have to turn on in the first place anyway. It just doesn't make too much sense to me, honestly. Now, when they are on, the auto wipers do work well, if a little bit slow to the change in intensity of rain. But the fact that they're not truly automatic, it just kills it a little bit for me, really. Now next we move on to my favourite optional extra fitted to this car, and it can be found right here. Now at first glance it looks like a normal rear view mirror, but come closer and you'll see a tiny little sensor below the mirror glass. That's a light sensor, and it senses when someone is behind you at night with their headlights glaring into your face. The mirror then auto dims gradually into a strong bluish green tint, and I've got to say it works really well. It's quick to react and dims the mirror enough to eliminate 99% of the glare, and therefore I can wholeheartedly endorse this optional extra. Sticking within the interior, may I now draw your attention to the cruise control. You all know what cruise control is. Stick it on and the car will use its ECU to maintain a speed regardless of the gradient of the road. For me, I find cruise control handy to use from time to time. 50-mile-an-hour roadworks on the motorway come into my mind, but for most of the time traffic and road conditions are a bit too varied to make really good use out of it. In modern cars, cruise control is often radar guided, meaning the cars have an ability to slow down or speed up depending on the cars in front of them. That brings in a shed load more usefulness, but since this Corsa is 11 years old, it just has plain old-fashioned cruising capabilities. Now there is nothing objectively wrong with it, but I don't think cruise control is the most necessary feature to have on a Super Mini, even a diesel one like this. Honestly, when I got this car, I thought I'd be using cruise control all the time, but in the 3 months I've had this car, I can honestly say I've only used it about 5 times. Finally, the climate control. At first glance, the controls look very similar to the normal system found on standard Corsas, and I'd imagine that's really all done in the name of cost saving. But look closer and you'll see there's no traditional blue and red zones and no numbers from 0 through 4. In this car, you can set a temperature and let the car do the rest, though of course you can manually override. Now I'll be the first to admit I haven't used that many climate control systems on different cars before, but from my limited experience, I find the system on this car just a little bit too rudimentary to leave everything on auto. It either overreacts or underreacts to temperature differences, and therefore I tend to just leave everything on manual. What climate control does bring you though is this swanky monochrome display that was actually pretty advanced for its time on this segment of car. Not only does it show your climate control in a fairly visually pleasing way, it also has room to simultaneously show your radio station and your trip computer all at the same time. It really bumps up the quality feel in here, and so while the climate control is neither here nor there for me, The inclusion of this graphical display over the ancient standard system is worth its weight in gold, in my opinion. So those are the main optional extras fitted to my car. Now obviously you could be pedantic and say the engine itself is an optional extra, but don't worry, I will be covering the engine in a later video way more in depth. So then, my options. Now this video probably sounded like I had a downer with the features of this car, but truth be told, prices of Corsa Ds, they're getting so low these days, you'd be silly not to go for a car which has all the features loaded on top, because although some of the conveniences are quite minor and some of them aren't as great as modern cars, it's still, for the sake of an extra 50 quid in the used market, it's a no-brainer really. Anyway, that is it for now. Thank you very much for watching, and hopefully I'll see you all in the next video.